Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. My name is Vander Puchert, and this is Finding Frequency. Preparing to record a video later this week, and I'm testing out one of my other microphones, so I might sound a little bit softer, maybe a bit distant, but I'm giving it a test run anyway. It's supposedly going to help cut out other noise. I've had this microphone for a while. In fact, I recorded a few podcast episodes, and it's usually my field microphone, a microphone that I use when I go out and do workshops and record interviews at workshops, and it's got this ability to cut out background noise. It's very directional. It's a shotgun microphone. So I always feel fancy when I have this microphone in my hand running around with a field recorder. And I was really preparing to use it this year, and boom, just show you how quickly things can change. And if I look around me, and even today, I started optimizing a few things because I bought some equipment over the last couple of months preparing for 2020, and I have not used it. Well, not as much as I thought, or of course messed around a little bit. So now I'm trying to hand some of that off, trying to declutter, because in some weird way, I've also invested in some other equipment. It's funny, just looking around at some of my colleagues last week, a colleague of mine actually showed me his new camera. He bought a new fancy camera and a microphone and all kinds of things, because we are all, like him, sitting in our offices doing a whole bunch of video calls. And we don't think it's going to change too much, even if the vaccine comes through. I think a large amount of business travel is going to kind of be cleaned off the slate, and I think that's a good idea. I don't think it's necessary to be traveling so much. A lot of things can be done via a phone call or a conversation online. That being said, it would be good to connect with people again for sure, and go out and experience other cultures and meet people and shake hands and whatever. But I must say, for one, that I don't miss the business travel too much. But then, of course, I'm also the father of a little 4-year-old, and leaving home and staying away always sounds great when I leave, but then when it becomes evening, I really can't wait to hear what's going on, and I always feel like I'm missing out, because with Martha around, there's always something going on. So that is something that I've been thinking about today, just looking around me, seeing where I can declutter, and thought I'd share it with you. Perhaps you can also look around yourself and see what things there are that you can get rid of, as we kind of trying to clean up for 2021. Wow. Just a couple of weeks and it's new year again. Martha and I are starting to think about coming up with some kind of idea of making the New Year special. I think I mentioned it in yesterday's episode that, and I forgot the city. We were in Lublin. We really had such a good time there with Francie, and just as our little family unit there. And it was a really amazing way to start the year. I felt so positive, and sitting here and kind of feeling the weather coming in, and like projecting myself back, 11 odd months, I really felt positive. But I don't know if I'm just doing myself I'm doing it injustice. Sorry, I'm losing my words today. So I'm not doing myself justice thinking about this year in just a negative term. It's kind of a thing that we've put on top of this year. There was so much going on. I mean, it's so quiet now, but like every week there was something going on with Mr. Trump. And then there's what was happening in the pandemic. And of course, there's still like a big part of our news, even today, like hearing that I think the planes have landed or already on their way to the UK with vaccines. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, imagine the task, having everybody vaccinated across the globe. Interesting thing. And I wonder, I'm not as brave as to think that, yeah, it's about my story and the story I'm going to tell, but I'm kind of curious about what the story is going to look like in a couple of years when we look back on this, especially some of the naysayers. And of course, there's also a lot of negativity, and some questions are being asked, like, are we rushing towards this vaccine prematurely? Are we taking a fat chance? And and it's very difficult. And I was thinking about it this weekend because I, for one, am pro-vaccine if I had to take a stance. But I'm also, like, from my background, we always go, like, you prototype and you test. You have to test things. You have to go through the rigorous testing. And I'm not entirely sure if that has been done. I mean, I don't want to sound like an anti-vaxxer, but we are talking about companies, for the most part, that hasn't been acting very nice. Big pharma companies aren't the nicest companies out there in the world. I mean, they are out to make money, and of course, I'm not taking away from anybody who wants to be profitable, but maybe I need to draw a line like this. Maybe I need to kind of describe what I'm feeling at the moment, not in the vaccination perspective, because I don't want to create the wrong impression. But I was thinking about it in this terms because I've made it pretty clear about where I stand about American politics. And it's funny, like I'm acting like I'm American. I'm talking about politics, but I do think that there's for a long time, the statement that America is leaders of the free world, I think is valid. And what they do affects a lot of us. And it affects how we here in the European countries negotiate and how we live. The UK affects us, and ultimately it also affects Africa, because Africa still requires a lot of help. It's going to get there. Requires a lot of help. But let me explain why I feel so kind of lost at the moment a little bit. Because, for example, I have a client and a very senior person, a very senior individual. And when we are in meetings, he really makes it clear that he's not a Trump guy. He's definitely not a Trump guy. He makes it very, very clear. And the way that it's positioned is that, as someone who's external, like, Trump is the bad guy and everybody else, Democratic, whatever, is the good guys. And I've kind of aligned with that. And I would say, though, that I don't think anybody who supports Trump or whatever is a bad person. Come on, we all have opinions. We all have to share ideas and respect each other's perspectives. But let's go with this example for a moment. And then when I look at this person that I'm referring to who talks badly about Trump and look at his actions, look at how he is treating his staff and how he acts in meetings and some of the things that actually come out of his mouth, I have to say to you that he is not a good person himself. Although he's on the kind of the good guy side of the fence, he's not a good guy. He's cutthroat. I don't think he worries too much about anybody else except for the people that he reports to, the people who measures his performance. And perhaps some of us also act like that, or maybe that's what is important to you. I'm not judging you. But I wonder if I'm making my point that it's so difficult to really make an informed decision these days, because I also know that the pharmaceutical companies that I was referring to are trying to make their money, trying to survive and operate and be first to market. You don't want to be the last one to market. And for most of us, we're probably not going to have initially a choice of what vaccine we can get and how we get it. I know President-elect Biden said that you're not going to be forced to have a vaccine, but what's going to happen here in Poland? What's going to happen in the rest of Europe? And to be honest with you, I'm kind of weighing the odds. I'm going, do I want some kind of pharmaceutical drug in my veins, or do I want some bat DNA? I think I'm going with the human-made pharmaceutical stuff. But yeah, it's strange things to think about. Of course, rational thought will have to win at the end, and you have to look at the facts, and you're going to have to really make a decision. But it's difficult when you also have a 3-year-old living in your house who you are making decisions for. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. Am I? Or am I just being a fool? How do you feel? Like, what is your kind of stance on this? Like, where do you stand? Are you already in the queue for the vaccine? Are you trying to avoid it completely? Are you scared of what's going to happen next with this pandemic? Wow. So much to think about. But it's also interesting times, let's be real. I mean, I keep on saying to mates that haven't spoken to in a while, and I think recently, I'm trying to think who it was that I connected with recently. It was within the last 3 days that I spoke to a friend of mine who I haven't had a connection with in a while. And he was asking me, hey, how's it going? And I said to him, dude, I mean, I've survived apartheid. I've seen Mandela freed from prison. I've moved to Poland. I got married twice. And, now I'm trying to survive a pandemic. What next? I can't argue that my life hasn't been interesting. And how crazy it is. But yeah, let's leave it there. It went a bit deeper than I thought it's going to go. But I appreciate that you have been listening to this. And if you ever want to reach out and drop me a note and let me know what you think, because I need help. Thanks for listening.